the state system is now on the order of the day. The capitalists, in whose hands the state power now rests, desire a state system where the power remains in the hands of the bourgeoisie, who govern the country by means of the old institutions, namely the police, the bureaucracy, and the standing army. We desire a different republic, one more in keeping with the interest of the people, more democratic. The workers of all the world look with pride and hope to the revolutionary workers and soldiers of Mexico as the vanguard of the world's liberating army of the working class. The movement, once begun, must be strengthened and carried on. We shall not allow capitalists to continue. All power in the state, from the bottom up, from the remotest little village to every street block of Mexico, must belong to the workers, soldiers, agricultural laborers, peasants, and other deputies. The central state power uniting these local Mexicans must be constituent assembly or national assembly, no matter by what name you call it. The people themselves, universally armed and uniting the Mexicans, must run the state. It is they who will establish the necessary order. It is they whose authority will not only be obeyed, but also respected by the workers and peasants. Only this power, only the soldiers and peasants' deputies can solve the great question of the land in a non-bureaucratic way and not in the interest of the landowners. The land must not belong to the landowners. The peasant communists must take the land away at once from the landowners, while carefully warning all the property against damage, and seeing it to the grain production is increased in order that the soldiers at the front be better supplied. All the land must belong to the whole nation, and its disposal must be concern of the local Mexican peasant deputies, in order that the rich peasants, who are themselves capitalists, may not wrong and deceive the agricultural laborers and the poor peasants. It will be necessary for the latter either to confer, to combine, to unite separately, or to set up Mexican agricultural laborers deputies of their own. Do not allow the police to be reestablished. Do not let the state power or the administration of the state pass into the hands of the bureaucracy, who are non-elective, undisplaceable, and paid on the bourgeois scale. Get together, unite, organize yourself, trusting no one, depending only on your own intelligence and experience, and Mexico will be able to move with a firm, measured, unerring trade toward the liberation of both our own country of all humanity from the yoke of capital. Our government, a government of the capitalists, is following the interests of the capitalists. Hundreds of billions of capital have been invested in profitable undertakings, bringing death, hunger, ruin, and barbarism to the peoples and staggering scandalously high profits to the capitalists. There is only one way to get a truly democratic peace and not imposed by force, and that is by transferring all the state power to the Mexican workers and soldiers' deputies. The workers and poor peasants who are not interested in preserving the profits of the capitalists and robbing the weaker nations will be able to do effectively what the capitalists only promise, namely, end the war by concluding a lasting peace that will assure liberty to all properties without exception.
Lenin reached power after many years of being out of his country. Before returning to Russia, he saw from the outside all the changes and different situations that were happening in Russia. In his exile, he wrote a thesis about his ideologies and what he envisioned could happen in his country. After the Tsar left power as consequence of the Russian Revolution, Lenin decided with other communist colleagues to return to Russia. With the help of the Germans that supported the Bolsheviks' victory, Lenin returned to Russia in a private train. He was immediately accused of being a German spy, but after giving a speech criticizing the Germans and the bourgeoisie, he earned the respect and support of every worker and soldier. He made alliances with some socialist parties and became the leader of the Bolsheviks. Lenin's political party was moved and inspired by the Marxist theories and was part of the Social Democrat movement. Since the beginning, Lenin knew that in order to achieve power, a social class fight would need to be triggered, and that the people should be convinced to fight against capitalist ideologies. With the power of words and speeches, Lenin's political party and colleagues convinced the Russian people to fight against bourgeoisie in order to give the power to the people. The ideology was based on the idea that all men are equal and that there are no difference between classes. They also rejected the capitalism idea that all men should win only their own good or capital business. His movement was supported by an army that was called the Reds. This army was created by the Bolsheviks in order to fight against the White Army. After the revolution ended, the Red Army stayed as the official USSR's army until 1991. The new communist economic policies in the USSR imposed many social conditions. Private property was eliminated. The industry was transferred to the hands of the state. Each enterprise was required to have at least 20 workers and the salaries went higher. The purpose of all these changes were to activate the internal economy and transform it into a new world power. By doing all of this, Lenin's goal was to establish a democratic and revolutionary dictatorship of the farmers and the proletariat. His external policy was based on his will to export his revolution to industrialized countries in Europe. He understood that it was very important to obtain the internal support of all these changes in order to maintain the communist revolution. Likewise, there were big chances of a geographic and ideological invasion of the capitalist country, and therefore his Red Army and the alliance with Germany were fundamental for his cause. Lenin's propaganda showed three main elements that were fundamental in order to convince most of the people throughout the country. The first one was the proletariat, workers and farmers. This part of the society needed economic assistance and opportunities for a better life. The second group were women. Lenin supported women, promoting a mixed society with equal rights and opportunities. Finally, he promoted visual arts in his propaganda. Lenin wanted to express the Soviet's ideas in an understandable and catching way that everyone would understand and follow. One of his most important actions was the creation of the Bolshevik movement. This movement wanted to take out the bourgeoisie and let the workers and farmers be equal among themselves. The most authoritarian phrase Lenin used in his speeches was, "The end justifies the means." Because of Lenin being so radical, he took the will of the people very seriously, and he punished and went against any person that he thought was a threat to such will. Lenin died of a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 54. When he died, he was still in charge of his regime. After his death, Trotsky and Stalin fought for their power. The first immediate consequence of the Russian Revolution was the victory of the Bolshevik Party. The second was the Marxist-Leninist new economic market. The economic policy he applied took Russia to be one of the world's powers of the time. He took the proletariat to a great position of moral conditions. He brought social equality and applied laws and obligations to everybody. Finally, the Russian Revolution created the division of the world into big blocks that would lead to a Cold War. Lenin's government affected the world in many ways. As previously mentioned, it led the world to a Cold War by dividing the world into two blocks, the capitalists and the communists that fought for influence and expansion of its ideals all over the world. In that context, there were wars in countries like Vietnam and Korea that were guided by communist ideas led by Lenin. Additionally, Lenin left many market ideas that are still being studied by different enterprises and countries in order to provide equal opportunities to their people. Lenin used fear and power in order to impose his ideas. His regime was feared by all the people, and oppression was always used as a tool in order to maintain the people under communism ideas.
Dictators have the ability to spread fear among their people and make them look as if they really were their only salvation. They know the way of thinking of the masses that are eager to follow a strong leader that can bring them hope and relief to their scarcities, so they take advantage of it through manipulation and state propaganda. Dictators use all their power to please control over information, and at the same time, they gain the respect of their people. Dictators sustain their government in legitimation, repression, and cooptation. Education and information is the key for people to make a judgment before voting. Politicians are experts in manipulating voters through concepts that are not necessarily true and need certain understanding. Authoritarian and populist leaders can easily make people vote through feelings instead of rational thinking, using concepts like revolutionary principles to deploy high classes, hunger as a consequence of capitalism. When people study and are well informed, can easily distinguish between fundamental arguments and political rubbish.